Hey folks, how's it going? I've put off doing this video for a couple of days uh, because I wanted to get as much information as I could before I actually started the video. But there's simply so much going on, so much to cover that I really just need to jump in, and I've got a lot of stuff here. I don't know if I'll get to it all. We'll see. But obviously, I'm talking about the Hamas attacks on Israel. That's the main subject of this video, and I want to come at this at a slightly different angle than what most YouTubers are covering it as, because most people are giving you like blow for blow coverage of what's happening over there. And I will cover that to a little bit, but we're already seeing so much of that on the news already. Again, the main focus of this video is I want it to be how this event is going to impact us. We all know that the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group was deployed to the Mediterranean. And there's a lot of debate over the ships that are involved, the armaments, what have you. So I'm going to go over that real quickly just to get that out of the way. And this breakdown actually came from an article on Al Jazeera, because I'm trying to get information from as many sources as I possibly can, like I usually do. Because as I've said in the past, every media source is going to spin things in a certain way. And the only way for you to get an accurate picture of what's going on is to view all of these sources and then try to pick out the kernels of truth from all of the spin and misinformation and propaganda, and try to put together a picture for yourself and figure out for yourself what is actually happening and what you need to do about it. So again, the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group is being moved to the Eastern Mediterranean. The USS Ford is the U.S. Navy's most advanced and largest aircraft carrier. According to the information that I have now, and I could be wrong on some of this, so if I am, you'll have to forgive me. The carrier hosts a guided missile cruiser and 4 guided missile destroyers. In addition to that, the U.S. is additionally sending USS Normandy, a guided missile cruiser armed with naval guns, and destroyers USS Thomas Hudner, USS Ramage, USS Carney, and USS Roosevelt. The U.S. is also augmenting with Air Force F-35s, the most advanced fighter jets in the world, along with F-15s, F-16s, and A-10s. There's already approximately $2 billion worth of U.S. munitions pre-supplied in 6 different locations in Israel. I expect that to go up. The U.S. on an annual basis provides about $3 billion annually in military support, weapons, and supplies to Israel. Now that money's already been earmarked. However, I fully expect the president to ask Congress for more money to send even more weapons and support to Israel before this is all over with. The reason I say that is because depending on how Israel responds, and they're already talking about Netanyahu has already mentioned that the Middle East will not look the same once they're done. We don't know yet exactly what form or where they're going to attack. We know obviously they're pounding the Gaza Strip relentlessly right now. I do expect soldiers to go in. You know, they're going to be a very uh, ferocious response to the attacks, obviously. Um, but as has been pointed out by many sources, Iran has been part, if not fully behind this attack. They have helped supply Hamas. In addition, you've got Hezbollah from Lebanon attacking, so there's conflict there as well. So we may see Israel launch attacks into Lebanon if they haven't already, which they may have. I've been at work. I haven't been able to keep up with the news as well as I would like. And there's the potential for them to actually launch attacks into Iran because they fully blame Iran for these attacks. Now, the fact that we're sending so many carriers, so many destroyers over there is concerning in itself. Now, I understand the large Christian population of this country and our history of providing support and our alliance with Israel, both from the political aspect as well as the biblical aspect of the religious belief that we really need to support Israel. I understand all that. And again, this video, I'm not here to say we should or we should not. My only goal with this video is to let you know how I think this is going to affect us. So, with us sending as many ships over there as we're sending, obviously we're going to be involved directly with some of this, either through rescue operations trying to recover the hostages that were taken into Gaza, or perhaps even assisting with strikes and troops on the ground. We really don't know how this is going to play out yet, but I believe there's going to be more than just a show of support, that the U.S. military will take an active role. As such, understand that this now puts us fighting a conflict on two fronts. While we don't have troops and military and ships actually in conflict in Ukraine, we are supplying sufficient weaponry to them. We're essentially fighting a proxy war through them against Russia. And while we're not actively boots on ground in Ukraine, although that is a possibility, we may have troops in there helping train the Ukrainians. We're not actively in combat. We're not actively at war ourselves, officially. We all know we are, but officially the United States is not at war. Regardless, this puts us fighting a conflict on two fronts right now. That's concerning for a lot of reasons. Throw in the fact that tensions were ratcheting up with China over Taiwan. And while we're fighting, while we're involved and distracted by Ukraine and Israel, China could potentially look at this as an opportunity to say, hey, they're distracted. Now is the time we move on Taiwan. Likewise, North Korea could say, now is our opportunity to move on South Korea. There's a lot of danger here. We're basically looking at this as imagine a powder keg with a dozen different fuses coming from it, going in different directions, any one of which can set off the whole keg. That's pretty much the situation we're in right now. Not just America, but the entire world. Now, I've said in the past that we were in World War III, but I likened it more to a Cold War than an active kinetic war. Because if you look at Ukraine, what you're seeing multiple countries supplying weapons, money, and humanitarian supplies and other aid to Ukraine on a massive scale. But then you also have, on the flip side of that, you have Russia, China, India, Korea, North Korea, I should say, Iran. All of those countries are solidifying their alliances with one another, and they're trying to help one another out. So you can clearly see, if you look at the maps and the way things have been playing out just with Ukraine, you can clearly see how alliances have been made, sides have been drawn. We pretty much know who's on what side. Now you throw in Israel into the mix. That brings even more countries into it, and it, in some ways, solidifies some alliances in different ways. Because now North Korea is siding with Palestine, Iran, Russia is siding, Iran is obviously siding with Palestine. Saudi Arabia is trying to pull back from recognizing Israel. So you're seeing a definite delineation between certain countries. Again, we see the sides being, the lines being drawn, whose side they're on. So we're fighting a war on two fronts, or in effect, we're fighting a war on two fronts. Although we're not actively boots on the ground yet, I do believe that is a potential, has the potential to happen. With the possibility of us fighting on three fronts if we have to step up and defend Taiwan. Because promises are being made, we're told that we can supply Ukraine, we can supply Israel, and without taking away from our ability to make sure Taiwan stays secure and our other security interests are covered. But just imagine for a moment, what happens if China moves on Taiwan and then North Korea moves on South Korea? Then we'd be looking at four different fronts of this thing. So we're in a World War III, folks. I mean, there's no way around it. If you can't see that, you don't understand what's going on. I've said that before. You would have to be blind not to see that the world is in a World War III. I would liken it to, in terms of World War II, I would liken it to pre-Pearl Harbor, because we're supplying other countries with materials and aid and money, but we're not boots on the ground in any of these places yet. The question arises then is, with us stretched so thin and distracted in so many different directions, what are the chances that another country that hates the U.S. launches an attack on us? That would be the ideal time. And has been pointed out by some other YouTubers, this is also an election year. There's a steep division in this country between political parties. There's steep moral divisions in this country. So we're as divided and weakened as we could possibly be, which is the worst time for all of this conflict to be starting. Makes us extremely vulnerable. And you can't help but ask, what happens if one of these countries decides to attack the U.S.? Now, add into that the border that has been flung wide open by Biden and his administration. Illegals flooding in by the tens of thousands per day. I think we're up to something like 5 million illegals just in the past year or so. And statements have already been made by the Border Patrol and Customs that a large number of these individuals coming across are on terror watch lists. They are criminals. They have criminal records. A lot of these people, some of them, I'll grant you, are probably looking for a better life. I'll grant you that. But there's a large number of them that are not good people. They are either in gangs, in the cartels, or they're militants. And everybody keeps talking about the vast number of fighting age males coming across the border. And it's not just coming, they're not just coming across the border from Mexico and Latin America. You're getting people from China. You're getting people from Arab countries, Muslim countries. So you're getting people from African countries. So it's not just, don't make the mistake of thinking these are just people from Mexico and South America, because that's not the case. And then you have to throw in the rumors that Venezuela is emptying their prisons and sending them up here. So that makes for a dangerous element. How many terrorists, how many sleeper cells are in the United States being fueled by this mass invasion from our southern border? That poses yet another threat. So that being said, we could be attacked from another country that doesn't like us, or we could be attacked from within by some of these people that have crossed the border illegally. We just don't know. Even the government says they're not entirely sure exactly how many have come across the border. They don't, in some cases, they don't even know who has come across the border. They're getting back to Iran. There's a couple of more things that I wanted to talk about. Iran and Israel, I should say. There's reports that weapons and equipment left in Afghanistan could have been used in the attack on Israel. But a lot of the talking heads, a lot of the former staff members and former military members that I've heard talking are saying that it's clear that Iran has funded this and supplied plenty of weapons of their own. But there's the potential that some of these weapons left in Afghanistan by Biden could have been used in this attack. Now, one thing we do know is that just a week or two ago, if y'all will recall back, there was a trade with Iran for American prisoners. We paid a ransom of $6 billion. Now, up until recently, that money was held in a frozen account in South Korea. But up until about a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks ago, Biden released that money. He released it to Iran. Now, there's a lot of people saying, well, Iran can't use that money for whatever they want because it doesn't go to Iran, it goes to all these vendors that then turn around and supply products to Iran. Okay? Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But consider this. If I have a mortgage of $1,500 a month, and then I know that I'm told that I'm going to get a $3,000 check a week before my house payment is due, then that $1,500 payment that I've been holding on to, ready to pay the house payment, I can take that $1,500 then and spend it on whatever I want to. So that $6 billion, even though it may or may not be going directly to Iran, that's $6 billion that they don't have to spend on humanitarian needs, food, fuel, any kind of needs like that, medical supplies, what have you. So that frees up the money that they would have been spending on it. And then they can fund whatever terrorist group that they want to, because we all know Iran is the major sponsor of terrorist groups in the world. They make no bones about that. They don't hide that at all. So, in effect, by releasing that money, Biden has funded Iran's terrorist group sponsorship. So in a way, you could say Biden funded Hamas and their attack on Israel. Now, some may say that this was done intentionally. Could it be that all the warmongers here in the United States have been wanting us to get into a full-blown war with Russia through Ukraine, and they haven't been able to do that? So now they throw this out there thinking this might be the final push to get us into an active war. Who knows? It's hard to know what goes through the mind of some of these politicians. I can guarantee you this, most of the politicians out there, the things that go through their mind, they're not pleasant things. They're not pleasant, and they're not in our best interest. They only benefit themselves. And a lot of these people become wealthy off of war. All right, so excuse me for a minute. I'm looking at some of my notes here. Now, something else to keep in mind: we're having protests here in the United States of people that support the attack on Israel. They're cheering it on. They're celebrating Hamas's attack. Some protesters that I've seen on the news in New York were celebrating and the attack of the innocent civilians, the slaughter of the innocent civilians. One protester in particular was asked if she condoned it, if she supported the slaughter of innocent civilians. And she said, there are no innocent civilians in Israel. It's a colonizer, and therefore no one is innocent, and they all deserved what they got. This means she's basically saying all the women that were raped and killed and mutilated, all the men that were killed, all the children that were killed, they all deserved it. They're celebrating the people that are mutilating bodies and parading them through streets like, I'm sorry, if you support that kind of thing, I'm going to interject my personal beliefs in this for a second. If you support that type of thing, if you support the wholesale slaughter and abuse and mutilation of innocent people, people who can't defend themselves, especially women and children, if you support people carrying bodies through streets and parading them around and laughing at them and cheering, that tells me all I need to know about you, and you are not a good person. I'm sorry, I've just got to say that. Anybody that supports that kind of behavior is not a good person. If you have to hide behind a mask and then claim that you are in the right when you launched these attacks and committed these atrocities, you're not a good person. You're evil. Deep down, you are an evil person. I'm sorry, that's just my personal beliefs. But anyway, there are people in the U.S. that are celebrating this activity. They're celebrating and cheering on these atrocities. And even the Ivy League schools here in America are siding with Hamas, saying that Israel deserved what happened, that it needed to be done. So these are all of these people, they're supporting terrorism. In fact, I saw one, I'm getting off on a little tangent here, but I saw one of the protesters say, we shouldn't be sending money to Israel. America first, not Israel first. Which I find extremely laughable, because when it was Trump and conservative Republicans yelling, America first, we were racist and we were xenophobic and what have all these, that we were Nazis and all these unpleasant terms. But it's laughable to see these people now saying America first, not Israel first. You know, it's just, I just had to point that out. That's the hypocrisy of these people and the mental delusions that they're under to be able to make these kind of choices and statements and think it makes sense. It's disturbing on a lot of levels. Okay, so Something else that I wanted to point out, and I've heard other people talk about it. It's curious that just a couple of days ago, just last week, we had this uh, emergency alert system test that hit everybody's cell phone, which happened on the exact same day within just a couple of hours of Russia doing a very similar test. So that's another similarity that makes you pause, scratch your head, and go, I, I don't. I believe coincidences happen sometimes. That's a major coincidence to me. I'm not sure that is a coincidence, to be honest with you. Uh, so another thing that I've been thinking about and I noticed, and again, this is not to say we should or should not support Israel. I'm not saying either one. I'm just pointing out some things that we need to be aware of. Congress has been in a battle, particularly the House, because we just ousted they just ousted McCarthy as Speaker of the House because he was trying to do backroom deals to fund the war in Ukraine to a tune of $6 billion, I believe it was. Might be more than that. I might have my numbers mixed up actually, but they were trying to do a deal to continue to fund the war in Ukraine while our government was facing shutdown. So there was a vote and they ousted McCarthy. I find it interesting that once Matt Gaetz and some others stood up and said, no, we can't be doing this spending. We have to rein in spending. We can't justify sending all this money to Ukraine when we're having trouble funding our own services, our own government, that suddenly this attack happens and those very same Republicans that were against supporting the war in Ukraine are very much in favor of supporting Israel. And again, I keep repeating this, but I know I'm probably going to get some comments. I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just pointing out the about face that's happened there. I don't think that our government, I've heard some people say that they think the government did this to rush in a speaker that they wanted. I don't think that's the case, but as everybody knows, government never lets a good crisis go to waste. So I think they will take advantage of it. So let's see. Some other things to take note of. Ramzan Kadyrov said he and his Chechen militias are willing to go in and support Palestine for peacekeeping, if necessary. Again, this just shows the close alliance between Russia and Iran, Palestine, Hezbollah, and Hamas. China and Russia are actively calling for a return to the 1967 borders. So we have China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, possibly even Turkey siding with Palestine. Again, this goes back to sides being chosen, lines being drawn. Almost every country, in one way or another, is involved in either Israel or Ukraine or both. So this is a concern. This is a major concern. We are in World War III. Regardless, whether you think so or not, whether you like it or not, we're in World War III. We just haven't started sending troops out to fight. We're letting other people do our fighting for us right now. So what do I think, how do I think this is going to affect us? Well, the price of oil was coming down. The price of gas was coming down with it. I fully expect that this will start driving the price of oil and gas back up. I think that will happen. Uh, I think we could face serious shortages of food and material here at home because we're sending so much stuff overseas, particularly if we actually get into a direct conflict and not just proxy wars. Then we're going to be having to supply our own military. We're going to have to be building more more weapons. We're going to have to be supplying soldiers. In fact, I've heard reports that the military is already stocking up on food. So there's a potential for food shortages. The rising price of gas could lead to fuel shortages as well. Iran gets most of their money from oil. And some U.S. officials have called for attacking their nuclear enrichment facilities. Some officials have already said that for every life, American or Israeli, that Hamas takes, that we should do an airstrike on an Iranian oil facility. I'm not sure what in the world's going on behind me. I'm sorry if you hear that. I apologize. There's some crazy people in my neighborhood. So we're looking at rising gas prices, possible fuel shortages, possible food shortages. Expect those prices to go up as well. They already were with inflation. This will add to that. This will hurry the increases up. Typically, when they're reporting this as being Israel's 9/11 or Israel's Pearl Harbor, the concerning thing about that is that after both of those events, freedoms were attacked here in America. If you think back to Pearl Harbor, anybody of Japanese descent here in America was put in an internment camp. It's one of those chapters in U.S. history that is often ignored, but it did happen. Even Japanese citizens that were loyal to this country, who had nothing to do with it, they were innocent, they were put in camps. After 9/11, you had the Patriot Act. And despite its name, contrary to its name, it was one of the most unpatriotic acts and pieces of legislation ever put before the Congress. We lost more freedoms and more rights with that legislation than we ever had before, save for during the War for Independence. So, with all of this going on, if we do go into a war, again, a boots on the ground, our military in combat war with one or more of these countries, I would fully expect more restrictions on rights and freedoms. So I'm going to follow the same path that several of my fellow YouTubers are making. You need to be stocking. You need to prepping. You need to be prepping. You need to be stocking as fast as you can. You need water. Ways to filter water. Ways to collect water. Have a way of obtaining water if your power goes out. If you're on a well, you need a way of powering that well to get water. You need food. Stack it. Canned food, dried food, rice, beans, what have you, canned meats. Hunt if you can, forage if you can. It's the wrong time. We're going into winter, so you can't grow a garden unless you have a really good greenhouse. But you need to be looking into, in the coming year, growing a garden, raising livestock if you can. If you have a half an acre or an acre, you can raise rabbits, you can raise quail, you can have chickens, provided you don't have laws against it in your community. If you live in an HOA, you're screwed. So you need to be stacking food. You need to be trying to grow food. If you produce your own food. If you can't, network with people who can do that and start bartering with them. Learn how to barter. Set up a network. Stock medicine and medical supplies, because I guarantee you, if we go to war, those will become short in supply. They're already taking lots of medications off the shelf right now because they don't work. Whether that's actually true or not, I don't know. It could be just something to restrict our ability to take care of ourselves. Defensive tools. You need to be able to defend yourself. Make sure you have what you need to defend yourself, and stock up on ammo to supply those weapons, because ammo during wartime, ammo tends to get scarce, and you may need that ammo and those defensive tools to defend yourself, or you may even need it to put food on the table. During the Depression, people en masse turned to hunting. They almost hunted deer out to extinction. It was on the verge of extinction. But also consider that the large liberal population here in the country that support these terrorists, that support violence, that support attacks on people because of the color of their skin, or because they believe something slightly different. We're going into an election. That could be dangerous. That could be pretty volatile with civil unrest. So we need to be prepared for civil unrest. We need to be prepared for violence here at home. Be prepared to defend yourself and your family, and provide food for your family. You need to be looking at backup power. As I've said, generators are fine. That's great. But you can't store but a certain amount of fuel. Speaking of fuel, if you can, you need to be storing up at least a little bit of fuel. 5-gallon gas cans, that can give you a tank of gas, depending on the type of vehicle you drive. That can give you a little bit of flexibility. It may not be much, it may not last long, but it will give you a little flexibility. It'll also save you money if you buy it now, as opposed to waiting till later when the price goes up, because I do fully expect the price of gas to go up. However, all that being said, I know I've said prep hard, prep fast, do as much as you can, as fast as you can. However, and this is the key note, do not take out debt to prep. Do not run up credit card bills. Do not take out a loan. Do not take out a mortgage. Do not refinance your house. Do not take out an auto title loan or anything like that. Don't do any of those things to buy preps, because if you're doing that, that's the opposite of prepping, because you're making yourself more vulnerable. You need to be prepping to add security to your life, not taking out more security risks. So prep, but don't prep by going into debt. Don't let fear and panic lead you into making bad decisions. All right, this video has gone a lot longer than I intended it to, but I needed to get it out there. I needed to make it. So I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. I'll be back with more videos. Until then, take care, stay safe, prep like your life depends on it, because it very well may depend on it. And until next time, folks, I'll catch you later.